Hello again. Today I'm going to be stealing a Rimworld challenge idea from Ambiguous Amphibian. What I mean to say is that today we're going to be revisiting an all-time classic from the Amphibian's back catalogue, that one where he survived trapped underground in Rimworld. I plan to spend 100 days in the ground alone with a relatively overpowered but not insane pawn and, well, just see what kind of place we can make. We'll be starting alone on Cassandra Strive to Survive, since being naked, alone and underground is probably enough challenge for now. We need to find ourselves a nice, roughly equatorial, impassable mountain tile, somewhere like here. Naturally, we'll be using a darkness-loving tunneler ideologian to help out, which will be named Deep Boys, though using boys plural might end up being a bit of a misnomer. Now for our lonely caveman. As you might expect, we'll be making a dirt mole. I could probably make a better custom xenotype, but I figured it'd be nice to stick to the pre-made options here. Dirt moles have everything we'll want, with the one downside being that they're slow runners. But that's not a huge downside when you live in such a tiny space. He's going to be a bit overpowered, which is fine. I'm giving him Sanguine to keep him from going mad so easily, and Brawler because why not? His skills are pumped up quite a bit because he's got to do everything down here. What to call him? See some butts? No, that's not a name. What about Lars Crevasse? That'll do it. And he's not 75 years old. That's not gonna work. Alright Lars, let's get to it. We've spawned, after a couple of failed attempts at getting the game to generate what I'm after, in a single open tile, rather luckily staring right at some compacted steel. And immediately we've mined into an open space. It seems as though the game's current map generator really doesn't like the idea of generating a completely filled space like what we saw in AA's video, which means my playthrough here will likely be substantially easier. But that's fine, right? That's sort of the point. To revisit a challenge concept from the past with fresh eyes and an updated game. I have access to a little bit of soil and sun and even a singular tree. It also means that in theory I could be raided via drop pod, but let's try not to worry about that for now. We harvested a mighty 27 wood from that tree. It's not enough to make anything nice, but that's okay. Down here, wood is fuel, not furniture. I think Lars deserves a bedroom though. It's not going to be a nice bedroom, don't get me wrong, but it's certainly better than nothing. Now, Lars is progressing nicely towards starving to death, and the rice plants are only 16% grown. It was at this point when I realised the amphibian started with 10 survival meals. And it was at that point that 10 survival meals materialised. How convenient. Lars, with his belly filled, spends the majority of his time smoothing stone walls and floors whilst waiting for crops to grow. Somehow it's been 3 days already, and we have a bedroom which is described as mediocre. A small plot of nutrifungus as well as some other nasty crops of the light. Which Cassandra obviously knew I wasn't supposed to have and sent down a blight on my rice crop. Thanks, Cass. I appreciate that. I believe this means we'll now have to ruthlessly ration meals for Lars, feeding him only when the malnutrition has built to near unbearable levels. It's either an incredible show of his willpower or of my power over him. Regardless, next we'll build a stonecutter's table to make blocks from all these rocks that fall from the walls while we're mining. This both clears up space, provides us with materials, and, perhaps most importantly, keeps Lars's mind from wandering towards food too often. It's been 5 days now and a wanderer named Amelia wants to join. That's not going to work though, so I reject this proposal. Lars is once again starting to starve, but that's okay, he's supposed to starve. I do enjoy playing a Rimworld challenge like this because it's just so simple. You watch Lars, you tell Lars what to do, and Lars does it. That's all there is to it. There's something very nice about that to me. I think I'll probably let him get to about 50% malnutrition and then let him eat. I think that'll see us through to our first harvest just fine. On the 7th day, he did not rest. He laid marble tiles in his earthen hole. Which might feel like a bit much, but just because we live alone in a dirty hole doesn't mean we have to live like slobs. Some cargo pods have landed, but I couldn't tell you where. It's been a while now and we're still not researching, though I'm not sure what to research. Perhaps smithing wouldn't be terrible, at least then Lars could defend himself against any errant bugs, though some method for generating electricity should surely be a high priority. We could, I guess, have a single, not quite fully efficient solar panel up here, but that feels like a waste. Our small patch of Nutrifungus is 70% grown, but looking at it now makes it seem like a good time to make a larger growing area for this stuff. Our rice, however, is 99% grown, so let's make a stove and make perhaps not the greatest use of this little bit of wood we have to fuel it. It's not going to last long, but regardless, let's turn our 78 units of disgusting rice into some meals. Of course, I don't want to make too many meals since rice lasts considerably longer before it's cooked. A transport pod apparently crashed somewhere with someone in it, but that's nothing to do with us because we live down here in the hole. Now the first of the Nutrifungus is ready, but Lars is, well, he's playing chess. Alone. With something of an abundance of food now, it'd perhaps make sense to use some of this space to grow other crops, like cotton. And it's only now that I realize I never made Lars a table. He's been eating his plain cooked rice like some kind of savage this whole time. As recompense for the time spent living in squalor, I'll dig him a nice big dining room. Or rather, tell him to dig himself a nice big dining room. Oh no, Lars has malaria. That's not ideal, given that he has no medicine. Perhaps yet another overlooked use of some of that space would have been growing heelroot. I'm not entirely sure how he managed to contract a mosquito-borne disease down here, aside from maybe the tunnels to the surface that I used to grow rice. It's probably those. However he got it, his immune system and whatever treatment he's apparently managing to perform with no supplies are working together to get over it. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. It's day 16 now, summer is beginning, and just like that, he's immune. Sweet immunity. And now it's time to clean up. The place is hideous. Also, we're out of wood, so no more cooking, unless we grow some trees or fibercorns, which I suppose is by no means impossible. Wait a minute, I'm researching smithing, but I wouldn't even be able to fuel the smithy. I suppose we'd best research tree sewing first. It's day 19 and we're smoothing walls. It's riveting. You're riveted to this video. You'd need an angle grinder to stop watching Lars smooth the walls of his abode and eat raw mushrooms. Speaking of his abode, the bedroom at some point became decent. Perhaps we can make it even more than decent with a few fine tiles. And here at day 22, I finally realized I should be researching biofuel and turning extra mushrooms into electricity. Not that it really matters much, as Lars has yet to spend a single moment at the research table. All my indecision up till now has been entirely in vain. I suspect Lars is actually getting used to eating raw mushrooms at this point. It seems like he might even like it. A theme of this playthrough is events that functionally do nothing, like this solar flare, followed soon after by an eclipse, and these cargo pods, which are out there somewhere, I'm sure. All those are followed by a psychic drone, which does technically do something, but not a lot. It's time to finally get Lars sat down at the research table. And he researches. Sometimes he sleeps, sometimes he eats, but mostly he researches. And there we go, biofuel refining. But as I had feared, the refinery requires components, so we'll need to go and do some strip mining. Oh, and there we go. Mia immediately found some. Very good. Even better news, Lars has experienced an inspiration. He'll successfully tame the next animal regardless of difficulty. Unfortunately there aren't any animals here. We're going to dig some more rooms for the biofuel refinery and generators, and how convenient. Whilst doing so, more components. Now, the biofuel refinery does consume 170 watts, so we'll have to run a wood-fueled generator in order to create our seed chem fuel, which can then be fed back into producing more chem fuel out of mushrooms. However, first we've just had our first cotton harvest, so it's time to make Lars some panties, which I'm quite sure he'll enjoy. Don't fuck this up, Lars. You need those pants. Before putting them on though, he's decided to go ahead and make the shirt too. I guess for Lars it's either naked or fully clothed. No half measures. They're the same colour as his body, so you can't really tell he's wearing them, but I'm sure he's thankful anyway. And okay, we've got some wood from the fibercorns, so after sticking that into the wood fuel generator we can force Lars to turn some of his food supply into chem fuel, and immediately the refinery broke. But it's okay, we have some spare components. In order to better fuel the fuel production, I'm expanding the mushroom farms, and with our newfound electricity we can make a stove and eat cooked food again. Now 30 fuel runs a generator for just under a week, and 70 mushrooms make 35 fuel, so it takes about 15 or so mushrooms per day or so. I don't know, whatever, this isn't Factorio. We don't do exact numbers. Who am I kidding? We don't do exact numbers there either. Anyway, alright, once more some cargo pods drop. Somewhere. And at this point I realise I could make a fridge, which I guess I probably should, but I'll need to vent the heat from the cooler somewhere, which is easy enough to handle with a little vented tunnel out to the semi-outdoor growing area. So Lars has a lot to do now. Throwing down the fungus gravel, building the fridge, planting more mushrooms, and in the middle of it all, some little beggar has the audacity to request charity. Even if I did want to help, we live in an enclosed cave. Anyway, we now have a cold room to store mushrooms in and a larger room to grow them in. Now let's focus on hauling for a bit. Although annoyingly the cooler near immediately broke down in the fridge. For some reason, everything here breaks immediately. Lars spends a lot of his time relaxing socially, alone in the dining room. I suspect I know what that means, but for the sake of food hygiene, I wish he'd do it in his bedroom. But when you spend your days smoothing rock walls, I guess you lose a certain part of your psyche, so maybe we should be more forgiving. And to top it off, there's another psychic drone. But at least the fridge is smooth now, so it's time for some cleaning during another eclipse. With that done, it's time to research some more. We'll do smithing, advanced lights, and probably pretty soon hydroponics. We're passing day 42 now, which is winter apparently, not that you'd know here in the cave. The generators output some heat, but it's also just very well insulated from the external temperature here. Also, the stove is on fire, so that'll be warming the place up a bit. Since it's so well insulated, these small rooms get immediately very hot when something sets itself on fire. Lars immediately got heatstroke as the room was up close to 100 degrees, shockingly quick. Oh, and hey, look, another solar flare. These actually do something now. Especially since in the midwinter we do in fact need heaters to stave off the bitter cold. Perhaps a hat will help with this. But which hat to choose? Shade cone. That seems appropriate. It'll keep him shaded from the harsh sun whilst harvesting cotton in the sunlit section. It's occurring to me now that this may actually be too much Nutrifungus. I always do this with the mushrooms. They grow slowly enough that I think for some reason I need to keep expanding their production, and then I end up with thousands of them and far too much growing work. Unless Lars can manage to self-install a field hand, this is going to be too much. Now we've researched advanced lights, we can place some, floor lamps. Yeah, I know, it's a frightening concept, isn't it? Playing without wall lights installed. Anyway, with them down, just gotta flick them over to dark light. It would be nice if I could use other colours, but it's pretty restricted with dark light. Gotta be this cyan blue. It's time to expand the base a little. I want to make a storeroom down here to save running up to the original shelves I built at the start of the game, and also a rec room would be nice down here. As Lars works on these, we're passing day 50. A good time to make a good cloth armchair for the chess table. And there you go, we've finished researching hydroponics. Though I'll need more steel to actually make any basins and a lot more power for sun lamps. With that in mind, we'll shrink the fungus zone some more. There's too many mushrooms and not much room to keep them all in. Alright, it's day 60 now, and as you can imagine, progress starts to slow at this point. Lars has a lot of background tasks to keep busy with. Oh, what's this? Cargo pods landing somewhere we can access? Full of chocolate? Did you say chocolate? Chocolate? Chocolate! Yes, 87 bars of it. How wonderful. Alright, so this space is ready for hydroponics, but like I said, we'll need more power. And that's what this space is for. More generators. But Lars just developed a case of the old sensory mechanoids. Hey, that's what you get for touching yourself in the kitchen, you dirty, dirty boy. Anyway, now it's day 69. Nice. And the fridge is full of fungus. Only some of which grew from Lars's special kitchen funtime fluids, but let's try not to think about it. Instead, let's focus our energies on using it to make more chem fuel and connecting the new generator room to the existing heat vents. Since this many generators will make an uncomfortably warm room. got a Psychic Soothe here as well, which is nice, considering Lars is all cranky about the mechanoids thing. Something that's annoyed me throughout this playthrough is that fueling generators is under the hauling job. And don't get me wrong, that does make sense, but it would be nice for it to be separate or to fall under the basic tasks. I'm aware that there's likely a mod for that. There's a mod for almost literally everything. You don't need to tell me. Though you can if you really want, since comments are just engagement. We need to do some more strip mining for components to fund the hydroponics basins. But before Lars can get started on that, some wool falls from the sky and then the armchair sets on fire. It's all popping off down here in the caves. Go Lars, go! Punch out the fire! We near immediately mined into some components. Though it's only a small chunk of them, it's enough. So there. A few basins to grow various nice plants and an electric smithy so we can finally arm Lars with a mace. Just in case. I'm 95% certain he'll never use it, but still. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. The same reason you keep spare pants in a race car. So Lars' favourite colour is... brown. I'm not gonna lie, Lars, that's a bit psychopathic, but okay, let's get your clothes dyed. I'm insisting on the hat being green though, which kind of makes Lars look like an onion or something. That probably won't be relevant to some insane video I'm releasing soon. Anyway, now he's happy about wearing brown clothes. One thing you forget about when you don't play Vanilla Rimworld for a while is that hauling is a massive job without backpacks, hauling inventories, and pawns just passively hauling when they're completing a job near something that needs hauling. Just shifting all this steel takes Lars an eon. Okay, we've passed day 80 and we're just sprucing the place up a bit at this point. Lars is very slowly finishing work on his billiards table, an excellent billiards table, and a second chair for the chess table, in case Lars decides to play a match with a friend. And to finish off the rec room, it's time to paint. My favourite time. We get yet another Psychic Soothe to offset the mechanite pain, and then it's time to expand the hydroponics before making Lars a cape out of that sheep's wool. All that is followed up by another solar flare. A really long one. Long enough to kill all the plants in my basins in any case. And now that's followed by toxic fallout. Which actually doesn't really affect us at all, other than making everything green, that is. It's day 95 now. 95 days into Lars's underground sentence. He's very much routinized at this point. He grows his crops, he cooks his mushrooms, turns some of his mushrooms into fuel and puts that fuel into the generators, plays billiards, plays chess, relaxes socially. He sleeps, he researches. Not that often at this point, but still occasionally. I actually did research brewing here, but I'd need quite a lot of wood to actually put it to use, so I doubt Lars will ever taste a beer while we're watching him. On day 98, I'm just watching Lars go about his life. He's happy, it's nice to see. So this is what we made in 100 days. I'm sure if we really went for it, we could have done more, but I'm pretty happy with this. And I'm sure this could have been a much more eventful playthrough with more mods, but I'm trying to reconnect with my love for this game by stripping it back a bit. It's easy to fall into mod pack insanity, and while I know for a lot of you that's the whole draw, for me it just speeds up the burnout. Playing something like this, which admittedly is nothing even remotely close to the vanilla experience, reminds me of why I love it so much. I find that Lars' story, whilst not enormously eventful, is so easy to fall deeply into and get invested in. He's just a lonely guy masturbating in the dining room of his cave. It's basically a self-insert character for most of us. Anyway, I suppose we'd best dig ourselves out. Peep out our heads and see what's left of the world. After a quick sleep. Fair enough, Lars, you've earned it. What plays now is the live audio from when I recorded this, because I feel like it's better than anything I could have done in voiceover. This is it. Look at that. Now we can see what's out here. There's a herd of dead deer. What? Oh. A herd of dead deer. Turkey and alpaca. Oh no! The donkeys and the piggies. There's vomit out here. There's just corpses and vomit. in any case, that's where we lived all that time. Yeah, clearly, it's best to just remain indoors. Lars has got the right idea. Remain indoors.